Yo, this is a motherfucker who needs no introduction. You are watching Breaking Records Radio.
You are now tuned in to Breaking Records Radio. My name is Alex, and I got here with me one of the illest dudes to grace the mic in Canada, the East Coast Overdose, the Howtown legend. Speaking to the man himself, Classified. What's good, my man?
What's happening? How you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing great on my end here. Again, I said this at the beginning of the call, but I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to speak to me here today. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to the talk.
Oh, good, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to just again start with some of, I guess, your upbringing, your roots. So you come from Halifax, and I'm always just amazed, especially in the kind of the mid to late '90s. Halifax at that period of time was incredible, and I think a lot of people don't really recognize just how much kind of talented MCs came out of there, and producers and engineers and the whole nine yards. You had like Hip Club Groove in the early '90s, Jorun, of course, Howtown Project, yourself, Sebitones, and everything Rich ended up doing in radio as well, Crackbeat Society, like all these little independent kind of movements that were happening. But you started within that kind of moment, that era.
Yeah, I kind of started on the outside of that era, though. Like, I was coming from Enfield, which is like a half hour outside of Halifax.
Sure.
And like those groups you said, like Hip Club Groove, Joe Run. I remember being in Enfield when I was like 14 or 15 and just reading about those guys in the paper and be like, oh shit, like there's rappers from this area that are in the paper and stuff. And that was kind of like my first, introduction to that. And, being from Enfield and just like me and my couple friends that rap, we were always trying to get involved with a bigger scene. So just seeing that and then trying to connect with Joe Run, and Joe Run kind of introduced me to like the whole scene and just even hip hop in general on a culture perspective rather than just the music and, being a small kid from a small town, not really understanding the culture. Joe Run taught me a lot of that.
So were you going up to Halifax on a regular basis then? You said it was about 30 minutes away. Was that
Yeah,
like part
yeah,
of your regime?
yeah. Like that was the only way we could record. Like originally, like Joe had a 4 track and a sampler, and we just didn't have any of that. So like we used to hitchhike. I remember like leaving school early, hitchhiking into Halifax, or taking my parents' car, but I had to have it back before they got home from work, or they knew I went to Halifax. And but yeah, that was like the struggle in those days, was just getting out of Enfield into Halifax to be involved in the scene and learning how to use a sampler, learning how to use a 4 track, which Joe showed me all that stuff. And then, doing shows at clubs and stuff like that, it kind of evolved into that, just being on the scene and seeing these other artists and seeing the way they moved and kind of learning from them.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think looking back and with hindsight, you can kind of see the value of a scene with, again, 20 years distance. But at the period of time that you were kind of coming up and visiting Halifax and seeing what was going on at like Cafe Olay and different freestyles and Howtown
Yeah.
Meltdown compilations, all that kind of shit, did you know that there was something special that was kind of curating in the city, or were you too
Well,
young
it
to
was
kind of
just
realize?
special to me coming from where I was from. I've never seen a DJ with turntables.
Yeah.
Just I remember the first time we did the Helltown Project show. Weird, I never forget this date, but it was May 12th, 1995. It was at Cafe LA. And I remember going to soundcheck. Like Joe Run just invited me and Matt. We were the Celtic Rebels. We were like, little rap group. And he's like, hey, if you guys want to jump on the show, it's like the whole Halifax scene doing the show. So we came down to soundcheck, drove over from Enfield, came in the afternoon, and just seeing like Joe on the turntables, Nathan C, Skills, Flexman, all these guys just joking around on stage, spitting bars, and you know, jumping off the stage, break dance, just joking around, having fun. Like that was really something that stuck in my mind. Of like, shit, like I've never been open. I've never seen any of this before. It was always on TV and stuff, so it was just eye opening. So for me, it was just like, holy shit, like this is real now. This feels real. Whether or not the rest of the world was paying attention to it, it was just like a personal thing for me to be able to see this stuff and get excited about it. And that's just another thing that just sparked my interest and my excitement to keep doing this music thing and getting involved in hip hop.
Fair enough. Yeah, and they were super dope as well, right? Like real talented MCs. You mentioned Nathan C, which I guess at that period of time,
Nathan C was like a
Nathan the
real
Alien.
MC.
Yeah,
Nathan,
super
but he
cool.
was Roughneck. His name was Roughneck when I first heard him.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
like
That's
he
right.
used to rap, kill, just bars, grimy style. But then he'd break out in the middle of the show and do a fucking Michael Jackson dance routine, and the crowd was going
It's
wild.
lovely.
Like I just never seen this shit before. Even callbacks, like if you feel a Roughneck, hell yeah, and the whole place, hell yeah. I was like, oh my god, I've never seen this shit before. Like You know what I mean? Nathan was like a real MC before. Well, I guess early '90s, being an MC, if you wanted to rap, you had to be an MC. It wasn't like you just rap and put your shit on the internet and you rap now. Like you had to prove yourself in front of a crowd. So those times were different. And me seeing that for the first time, it was just like, oh shit. And like I said, I just learned so much from them guys, being around those guys, becoming in a group with Nathan C. Like we started Ground Squad, me and him, a
Yeah.
couple years after that. So I got to produce a lot from him, learn from him, vice versa, and just having that circle of people that inspire you around you is very important.